Hey, who's the greatest basketball player of all time?
Let me think. Let's see. Michael Jordan.
Yep, no doubt.
Easily. I went into AI and had like AI stretch out Jordan's career to equal LeBron's, and
Right.
he would be leading in almost every statistical category. Like
Of course.
5-digit rebounds, 5-digit assists, well over 50,000 points. Like, and I don't think without Michael Jordan, like with him not being in the league, LeBron doesn't have the career he does.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'd agree with that.
Because
But it's also just like we talked about this before. The longevity thing is kind of a moot point because of the advancements in technology and
sure.
treatment and all that kind of stuff. And so, like, everybody's like, well, Jordan didn't have as long of a career as LeBron has had.
he also played 3 years in college. He played baseball for 2 years.
Yeah.
And
on top of all of that, he played in the 90s. You
Right.
know, and it's like we're now 30 years past the 90s.
And
when he was playing and at his peak and stuff. And so it's like, yeah, you think about the advancements that we made in treatment and longevity care and all that kind of stuff that they're having for basketball players these days.
Well, and the spread out of dominance of teams in the 90s was a lot greater than it is now.
Oh, yeah,
Because
100%.
you know, the one argument that people make is like, oh, well, LeBron's played against X amount of Hall of Famers. A lot of those Hall of Famers, Michael Jordan played against too.
yeah. Yeah, there was a lot of crossover in between the two of them. And on top of that is that, like, yeah, like you said, if you notice what LeBron has done is he has bounced around from team to team to try to find great players to be able to win a championship with. So that basically he's putting together the super team, but they're not facing any other super teams. I mean, the best that you have to point to is when he played against Curry and them.
Well, that Curry and then the Celtics early in his career. And it's just one of those things where, you know, early in the career, you know, when you had the big three in Boston, like nobody could get past them. And then, but you also had Detroit because Detroit was really good with Chauncey and Tayshaun Prince and Rasheed Wallace and Ben Wallace.
Oh yeah.
Like that was a super team, but it wasn't designed as a super team.
Yep.
Anyway.
So, anyways, we can move on. Some other fun questions for you. Who would you say is the greatest rock and roll band of all time?
Ooh, that's hard. Because, you know, obviously my mind goes to, like, the ones that have spanned generations. Like, you can make an argument for the Rolling Stones. You can make an argument for Def Leppard, Metallica, Led Zeppelin. But me personally, oh, man, this is hard. I mean, I've always been a huge Foreigner fan.
Okay. Foreigner's good.
But I wouldn't consider them like the greatest rock band of all time. I would probably have to go with either, I don't know, like it would be a toss up between Zeppelin and Metallica for me. Okay. As much as I'm not a huge Metallica fan, but like I appreciate their music and what they've done for mainstream rock and roll.
Sure. Yeah. No, I can see that. I think Metallica kind of, in my opinion, because I think the Led Zeppelin's the greatest rock and roll band of all time. I just think because of their diversity of sound, their influence, all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of reasons why I could point to, but the funny thing is that in that, I feel like Led Zeppelin is the Michael Jordan case, and that Metallica is the LeBron case, in the sense that they just had like a lot of longevity and a lot of hits and a lot of misses at the same time, you know, that type of thing. So like a back and forth on that. What about like greatest actor of all time? Who would you pick in that category?
And that's tough because you have to think of like the entire body of work.
Yeah, there's so much out there.
Yeah, I mean, when I think of like really good actors, but have had a lot of ups and downs, like RDJ is probably up there for me, just because, you know, I think Marvel saved his career. Yeah, because he had a lot of stuff going on. Man, I just don't consume enough movie media anymore. Mm-hmm. Probably have to say RDJ, in my opinion. Okay. I don't know. As soon as you say another one, I'll probably be like, yeah, that's probably fair.
No, I this is one that I don't know that I have a definitive one like to stand on either. I mean, we both know about like my man crush on Christian Bale. Yeah. And so I think that Christian Bale is a good like wide range actor because he's played like a myriad of different parts and played them well in that sense. But I could also point to like
I would say I would. The more you're talking, I was like maybe Robin Williams.
Robin Williams was a good choice. Like, he was a great actor.
In the range.
Tom Hanks is hard to beat. Yeah. I mean, there's like a ton of guys out there that I think are like right up there in that equal.
That are not necessarily problematic off.
Sir Ian McKellen.
Oh, yeah.
Because, I mean, the guy that goes from playing Magneto to playing Gandalf.
Yeah. Like, or, why can't I think? Who played Saruman?
Oh, I don't know that guy's name. He's an incredibly good actor, though.
He's the person that they based the James Bond character after.
Yeah.
And he's also a Sir, and I can't think of his name.
But he actually, like, that guy fought in wars and all kinds of stuff. Like, he was
in a metal band.
He was a fascinating, like, human being outside of just his acting ability.
Oh, yeah.
I wish I could remember his name right now. But he's a fascinating guy. So anyways, these are just like a bunch of random questions that I had. I got more of them, but we'll ask them later on sometime. I do have a would you rather to throw in right before you introduce what we're going to be doing in the rest of this episode. This one should be a relatively easy and maybe short answer. So I'll just throw it out there. Would you rather your hands always smell slightly like pennies, or have your hair be constantly wet with the water from hard-boiled eggs for 24 hours, 1 day a month?
So smell like pennies or sulfur.
Yeah, pretty much. Would you rather your hands smell slightly like pennies, like always, all the time, or have your hair smell like it was boiled in hard-boiled egg water?
Are we talking
for
about
24 hours,
all hair,
1 day per month?
All hair, or just hair on top of head?
It says your hair. I'm gonna assume that's gonna be anything on your head. So maybe not all of your body hair.
So just like facial hair too is included. Yeah. I'm probably gonna have to go with the pennies just because of having a beard.
Yeah, right. Because you have to constantly smell it.
Well, and because like I will kind of mess with my beard all throughout the day, so then my hands would be spent. Yeah, it would waft in my hand. Yeah. I'd probably have to go with pennies.
I think that I would go with the penny thing as well. My whole thought process in that was like, I don't know, maybe I could put on a pair of gloves or something like that.
But could you imagine though when you take those gloves off if they've been sweating? Sweaty pennies.
Yeah, no thanks. I've been really enjoying, like, we talked about this not too long ago, and as a matter of fact, in the next episode we have a comment about this, but we talked about the fact that I finally found like men's conditioner and stuff, and I love the smell of it, and so it'd be really hard right now for me to give up like good smelling hair because I'm like really enjoying that. But anyways,
so we've had bad days, right?
Just a few.
So like imagine like your worst day ever, right?
What a loaded question that was.
Like imagine your worst day ever.
Okay.
All right. So imagine having like the absolute worst day in human history, and then 3 days later the universe says, let's do it again.
That was a fun dance. Let's go again.
So have you ever heard of Tsutomu Yamaguchi?
There's no shot. So you remember when I told you that, like, okay, for everybody listening out there, this is really funny because Josh told me, he's like, I have a story that I'm going to tell that kind of ties into some stuff that we've previously talked about. I told you that'll work out perfect because I have a short story to tell after you get done with this one that ties into some stuff that we've already talked about. This is the same story I was going to tell.
Shut up!
We both looked it up.
Well, because I asked you like a couple weeks ago if you had heard of the guy, and you said no. Yeah,
I was doing my research stuff and just looking up like random interesting stories, which is totally cool. So you go for it. I want you to tell. All right.
So this is a completely detailed story. So the story of Tsutomu Yamaguchi is the only person officially recognized by the Japanese government as a survivor of both bombings in World War II. And I'm not exaggerating when I say his story is one of the wildest, darkest, and most important survival stories ever documented.
That's crazy. We're going to tell this story as soon as we come back from the intro. Good morning, Josh.
Good morning, Josh.
Recognize me? No? Well, I'm Josh. school because of Josh.
You could be there with me in every way imaginable, Josh.
Josh is truly in a trance, yes.
I went to high school with Josh, and I can tell you right now, he's a terrific kisser.
Hi, I'm Josh.
Josh, these are people's jobs we're talking about, Josh.
Thank you very much.
Hi.
Josh walking in the door wasn't even close.
Josh, you are a muffin-snuggling pirate puncher.
Josh is a good guy. We can talk to him.
Please welcome Joshua. Josh.
All right.
It's very funny that we both have planned that out.
I mean, well, you sent the meme to me that, like, you know, the more friends spend time together, their brains start to sync up.
Yeah.
So this is exactly one of those states. So Josh, I want to, with your help now, let's talk about Mr. Yamaguchi. Sorry. So this is one of those stories.
Mr. Yamaguchi. He's one of those little electronic guys you keep in your pocket, and you have to feed him and stuff to keep him alive.
Well,
my wife will appreciate that. She actually has a Tamagotchi downstairs.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, they made a comeback for a hot minute.
Yeah.
And then
which is ridiculous.
Yeah. So this is one of those stories that sounds completely made up and absurd, but it is a true story and a well documented story.
And knowing where it comes from, it sounds like something straight out of an anime.
Oh, or like a
crazy
movie.
story.
Like his story writes like a movie.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 100%.
So today, August 1945, Japan is in its final desperate months of World War II. So the U.S. has been systematically firebombing Japanese cities for months. Tokyo, Osaka, Kobe. Entire neighborhoods gone up in flames. Hundreds of thousands of civilians are unfortunately killed. And the American government has just completed work on something that will change warfare forever. Do you know what that was? They had just finished a little project known of the Manhattan Project.
To be clear, I am still against the use of these bombs and stuff that we're talking about today.
But if you think about it, there's a millisecond where every frozen entree is cooked perfectly.
Oh yeah. During an atomic explosion, yeah.
So on August
there's a certain radius to which, if you're on the outskirts of it, that every entree, frozen entree, was cooked to perfection, like in that radius.
Yeah.
And so technically speaking, as long as you were okay with stomaching the radiation poisoning that you're going to get from it, you could just go eat that thing right there.
Yeah, exactly. So on August 6, 1945, an American B-2 bomber called the Enola Gay flies over Hiroshima at dawn and drops the bomb Little Boy. And that was a uranium-based atomic weapon. So the blast is instantaneous, devastating, and incomprehensible to anyone who hasn't seen it. Which at this point in time, really nobody had seen a full nuclear detonation.
Right.
You know, we've had tests and stuff like that, but a lot of that was not fully armed ordnance.
Stuff that Oppenheimer and them did was the only time that we had seen the actual explosion in a sense. But then that was, under controlled circumstances and lots of things surrounding that didn't make it quite as
the fallout wasn't as bad.
It's terrifying. Yeah.
So this explosion is estimated to kill somewhere between 70 and 140,000 people in the first few seconds. Total deaths eventually reached about that 140,000 by the end of 1945 when you factor in radiation sickness and just succumbing to the initial blast and the blast radius injuries.
Which for everybody out there, so I actually have another story that I'll tell probably after this one that before this bomb went off, the largest death toll from a single explosion of any kind was only in the 2,500 person range, as far as immediate deaths.
Right.
So for this one to be at 70,000 minimum for the immediate deaths that were done by this bomb it's crazy. It's so over the top at that point in time anyways.
Yeah. And then 3 days later on August 9th, another B-29 bomber called Boxcar. I didn't. Yeah. It was one of those words that you've only said but never read.
Yeah. Yep.
Drops the bomb Fat Man, and this was a plutonium bomb over Nagasaki.
Yep.
Same story, instant devastation, around 74,000 people killed immediately, eventually going up to that another 140,000 by year's end. So these are the deadliest weapons and the only time nuclear weapons have ever been used in warfare. And one man, a 29-year-old Japanese engineer, is going to be in the blast radius of both of those.
Them. Yeah. This is wild.
So before we get to the story, we'll kind of give a little backstory of Mr. Yamaguchi. So he was born on March 16th, 1916 in Nagasaki. Obviously, he was born in the city that was bombed first. In the late 1930s, when Japan was ramping up its military machine and preparing for war, he decided to do something that took real guts. He joined the Mitsubishi Heavy Industries, the massive shipbuilding and munitions company, as a draftsman. Basically, he designed oil tankers, and this was critical to Japan's war effort. The whole reason, another backstory, the main reason for Japan getting into World War II was because of oil.
Yeah.
They're an island nation. They don't have a lot of oil reserves,
right.
And basically they were cut off from oil, so that's why they decided to bomb Pearl Harbor to try to take over the oil reserves. And
yeah, they thought that the way to get more oil for their tiny little island was to poke the biggest, angriest bear on the planet at that point in time. So yeah.
So Yamaguchi was actually opposed to the war. So he was not in favor of going to war. So this was not what an popular,
irony.
Yeah, not a popular opinion in the 1940s Japan.
Right.
So he thought Japan shouldn't have started World War II, and as the conflict dragged on, Japan started losing ground. He became depressed about the state of his country and seriously considered something terrifying, basically getting rid of his family to basically prepare them to have not having them around and himself was a better option than where he saw things going.
Right.
Which, is one of those things where, you can kind of see his state of mind and things like that. And it was a lot like as the war drug on, that was kind of a growing sentiment in Japan because the people saw it as a losing effort.
Right.
So the American firebombing campaign had turned Japanese cities into ash. Resources were scarce, and surrender was probably coming. But he was, still going to work. Hey, war's going on. Got to go to work. Boss wants me into work.
I'm just saying things could have been worse though, because they could have actually developed the bat bomb.
Right.
With incendiary bats just flying in everybody's homes in Japan. So anyways, but it was really rough. Like things were getting tough for them.
In the summer of 1945, he gets sent to Hiroshima on a 3-month business trip to kind of help oversee some of the work. Mm-hmm. He's planning to leave Hiroshima on August 6th, and just another business trip. And we all know that kind of is where our story picks up. So on August 6, 1945, around 8 a.m. in Hiroshima, Yamaguchi is supposed to take the train home that day. He has his bags packed, said his goodbyes to his 2 colleagues, and headed towards the train station. So he realizes he forgot something critical. He forgot his hanko, which is basically his personal identification stamp.
Yeah.
So basically, so he could travel, freely because of work. So he turns around and goes back.
So to paint this picture, though, dude is headed, supposed to go into Hiroshima to catch a train to go back to Nagasaki.
Yes.
As he is starting his journey into the city, he realizes,
oh crap,
oh man, I forgot my identification papers.
I need those.
I gotta have those to be able to get on the train. So he goes back to his hotel place to go grab his identification papers, which is all in the port side, right? So he's out on the outskirts of Hiroshima. He goes back to get his paperwork and then starts to turn around to head back to the station.
Yep. So he turns back to his workplace, grabs it. This minor, almost comical detail, forgetting a stamp, is probably the only reason he doesn't die 3 days later, because he had been heading on a train out of the city. Had he been on that train, he wouldn't have been positioned exactly 3 kilometers from the blast center.
Right.
So talk about timing, luck, fate, whatever you want to call it. So around 8:15, he is walking towards the docks when he looks up. And he sees something rather unusual. A B-29 bomber high in the sky carrying something suspended below by parachutes. He watches calmly for a moment, wondering what it is, and then kaboom.
Yep. Yeah.
So
can you imagine that your whole country's in the midst of this war now that you have started with the United States of America, but nobody knows that we've developed this bomb,
right?
That the U.S. has developed this bomb, and you're standing on the port looking into your city, like into Hiroshima. And as you do, you see this giant plane because a B-29
is
not
huge.
small, right?
Yeah.
So this big old plane starts flying over, and then you see this thing come out of the bottom of it that just starts, flying down into the city. And then, of course, the brightest picture that's ever been taken of you is taken.
Right. So, according to accounts from other survivors and Yamaguchi himself, the first thing people reported was a light so bright and hot it felt like standing in front of a massive magnesium flare. So Yamaguchi later described it as the lightning of a huge magnesium flare, and here's something incredible. His air raid training kicked in. So they had been practicing air raid drills, especially after the fire bombings, Doolittle's raid, things like that. He dove to the ground, rolled into a nearby irrigation ditch, threw his hands over his head, and locked his fingers over his eyes, jamming his thumbs into his ear. So basically, the monkey, the hear no evil, see no evil, like basically just
everything
covers
you
his
can
face.
try to cover all your things that are going to get destroyed by this blast.
So this automatic response, this muscle memory from years of air raid drills, probably is what saved his life. So the ground under him roared, ear-shattering noise tore through the air, a fireball imploded overhead, and then the blast wave picked him up and threw him face first into the mud. So the blast was so strong, it literally picked him up off of the ground and flew him and slammed him down.
And it said that despite him trying to like plug his ears and stuff like that, both of his eardrums were ruptured because of the concussion of everything.
And a woman who had been walking beside him moments before just simply disappeared. She was completely vaporized because of the blast. So when he comes to, he thinks he might have lost consciousness for a moment, which, everything was dark. When I opened my eyes, everything was dark. I couldn't see much. And he said it was like basically the start of a movie where it's just completely black and you just can't see anything.
Man.
So, like you said, his eardrums were ruptured. He was temporarily blinded from the flash. Mm-hmm. The left side of his upper body was covered in serious radiation burns. It would blister and char over the next coming days. Around him, Hiroshima was ceasing to exist. Buildings were pancaked. Fires were starting everywhere as wooden structures ignited. Reference back the bat bomb.
If you've never seen like the depictions of what happens when a nuclear device goes off, it's just complete devastation. Like the shockwave alone usually flattens everything across the face of the ground, and then the radiation and everything. There's an initial shockwave that goes out, right? That's usually what you see is like it looks like dust or clouds just kind of rolling out from the explosion point. You see the mushroom cloud usually kind of go up from there, but then out of that is basically like a wall of fire that just then moves out in a circle after the shockwave. And that wall of fire just, it consumes everything. So the shockwave levels everything, and then the wall of fire just makes sure that everything else behind it is burned.
And I know we talked about it. I think we talked about it in the Broken Arrow episode or another episode where, they can control how much explosion, how much they can basically control where it detonates.
Yeah. Yep.
So depending on the destruction.
Yep.
So, people who were visible moments before had turned to shadows, burned onto concrete walls. Basically, it was, any war projection movie that you've seen, like it's worse. Yep. So he was burned, blind, and deaf in one ear, but he got up. So he crawled to a nearby shelter and rested for a while, as one probably would do. Once he recovered enough to move, he set out to find his two colleagues, and somehow they actually also survived too. So they spent that night in an air raid shelter in complete darkness, probably not saying much because what do you say? Like, what? There's nothing to describe what you just saw.
Nothing to describe it, and then on top of not being able to like really describe it is that no one in the world had ever experienced this before.
Right.
I mean, it's not like, it wasn't like anybody in Japan was able to go, oh, that was a nuclear device.
Yeah.
Or anything along those lines. Like, everybody there was going, what did they just hit us with?
Yeah.
Like, that's the craziest thing.
So the next morning on August 7th, still heavily bandaged, still burned, and still in shock, he made a decision that seems kind of insane in retrospect. He got on a train and headed to Nagasaki to go home.
Well, so this is like a crazy part of the story too, is that despite the devastation of Hiroshima, they said that the railways and stuff and the trains were able to continue running. Like, they were able to get like trains into the city, pick people up and evacuate them out if there was anybody that was left and stuff, because like for whatever reason, it didn't destroy the rails and didn't destroy the trains and stuff like that, and so they still had those available.
Right. And like you just said, the roads were destroyed, buildings are gone, the entire city of Hiroshima is still actively burning, but the trains were still running because the Japanese military is not going to give up.
Yeah.
And there was no other way to get people out of the city. So the trains are still running. He gets on the train, wrapped in bandages, still semi-blind from flash burns, and suffering from severe radiation burns on the left side of his body. He spends the train ride home watching the devastation roll past the window. So he sees the burned countryside. He sees other survivors stumbling around in a daze. He watches the landscape transition from absolute destruction near Hiroshima to gradually less destroyed for the further and further away you get from ground zero. So it's about a 300-kilometer trip from Hiroshima to Nagasaki, and it takes him through the heart of wartime Japan, a nation that knows it's on its last legs. Mm-hmm. So the whole time he's in pain. His burns are severe. His bandages are heavy and restrictive. He has no idea whether his wife and infant son are still alive. Nagasaki is a port city and a major industrial center. Mitsubishi has plants there, so it's definitely on the Americans' target list if they decide to drop another bomb.
Right.
Kind of going back to something that we experienced during 9/11. There's a big nuclear plant up in Cleveland.
Yep.
There's also, I think, one of the largest, if not the largest, Air Force bases, especially in the mid-United States, in Dayton.
Dayton, yeah.
So, basically all of Ohio, especially, most every other place in the U.S. was on complete lockdown. Like,
yeah,
they sent us home from school.
Don't worry, everybody. We are just far enough outside of blast radius.
Yeah.
We would be okay.
But like, they canceled like practices after school. Like, everybody was sent home,
But when you think about, I just looked it up a while ago. So it would take 5 hours and 11 minutes to drive by car from Hiroshima to Nagasaki today. Mm-hmm. So like with their modern infrastructure, their train today, which is like the
rapid rail,
high speed rapid rails, is 2 hours and 29 minutes. But you think back then, this was 1940,
right? It's still steam locomotives,
and everything. Yeah, I mean, I would imagine with stops and everything, you're not talking about a short trip, right? Like, this is probably the entire day spent traveling to get from Hiroshima to Nagasaki by train and stuff. So it's just an interesting thing to think about. Like, this guy is in Hiroshima, watches the bomb drop, survives, spends the night in an air raid shelter, and then gets up the next day and is like, I'm going home.
I gotta go home.
And so loads up on a train, spends the entire day traveling to get back to where he lived in Nagasaki, and I'll let you continue on.
So he arrives in Nagasaki on August 8th. His wife is still alive. His infant son is still alive. But his wife, Hisako, is covered in black rain as she's been poisoned by the radioactive fallout from Hiroshima that drifted that far south. They didn't know this yet, but the exposure is going to cause her serious radiation poisoning, and basically it leads to her death from kidney and liver cancer. He gets medical treatment in need. They bandage his wounds. He tries to rest. And the next morning, despite being a walking wound, he does something that, all Americans can relate to. He goes back to work.
Yeah. I thought that was the craziest part of this whole story, is that dude survives the bomb in Hiroshima, gets on a train, goes home, gets some treatment, And the next day, homeboy shows up at the Mitsubishi offices like, all right, back to it.
So he's back in his office, still heavily bandaged, still burned, but he's sitting with his supervisor trying to explain what he witnessed in Hiroshima. So the supervisor is probably a little skeptical because, again, nobody's ever seen this before.
Yeah.
An entire city destroyed by one bomb, you're exaggerating. You're traumatized.
It said the guy interrupted him.
Yeah.
He like cut him off mid-sentence and was like, no. There's no way that a single bomb takes out an entire city. He's like, that's just crazy talk.
Right. So while he's describing this is about 10:30 on the 9th. While he's describing this in the middle of his conversation, guess what happened?
The blinding flash goes off again.
So at 11 a.m., about 40 kilometers away, the American B-2 boxcar releases Fat Man over Nagasaki. This bomb is actually more powerful than the one in Hiroshima. And basically the reasons why was because this was a city that had a lot of hills, a lot of valleys, a lot of topography in that region. So the light fills the office.
And the U.S. being the U.S., if we drop something, we're dropping something to level the whole island, not just to, not a few buildings or whatever.
So, the same white light finished the room. He later recalled, I thought the mushroom cloud had followed me from Hiroshima.
Wow. Yeah. Imagine that thought.
Oh, yeah.
Like, golly. Can you imagine if you, I just can't wrap my head around being in that guy's position as far as, you're 29 years old. You survived the first drop of a bomb of that magnitude, walked away from it in a sense, went home, got treated for the wounds. Dude was man enough to go to work the next day. He walks into work and then you look out the window and flash, there it is again. Just the thoughts that must run through your head as far as what did I do?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
So the windows explode. The shockwave throws everyone to the ground. He falls on his face, hitting the floor. But here's the thing. His coworkers, just having heard this story about how to protect yourself, do so instinctively. They do exactly what he did. They duck, they cover, they protect their head, their ears, and probably just from watching him describe what happened, the reinforced concrete stairwell in the office actually helps shield them, and the geography, like I said before, saves their lives.
Yeah.
So he is approximately 3 kilometers away from ground zero, the same distance he was in Hiroshima,
which is it's like 2 miles roughly.
Yeah. So he's 2 miles from both explosions.
Which is crazy.
So what he experiences is almost a carbon copy of what he experienced before, and he's not significantly injured by the second blast. But his bandages are basically torn away. He's exposed to the radiation again and the black rain. In the following weeks, he suffers high fevers, severe hair loss, basically every symptom of radiation poisoning. Yeah. And like I said, his wife experiences the same. All 3 of his children, born after the war, they all have problems that arise because of the radiation poisoning. So here's a recap of the last 3 days of this man's life.
Well, hold on, because an interesting thing about the wife was, so he had a wife and an infant son at that point in time, and he returned home after the bomb goes off to look for his wife and infant son, and they're both alive.
Yes.
And the reason why they were alive was because they had gone out that day to try to buy burn ointment for him to treat his wounds. And so it was only because he was in the first explosion that they were away from their home
for the second explosion.
And weren't affected by the second explosion to the degree that they could have been.
Right.
And stuff. And so, it's just a wild story of if he hadn't been in Hiroshima, then his wife and child probably would have died in Nagasaki.
Right. So the last 3 days of this man's life, the atomic bomb is dropped on Hiroshima. He's 3 kilometers away. Severe burns, ruptured eardrums, temporary blindness. Nearly dies but survives. August 8th, travels 300 kilometers to go home to Nagasaki while bandaged and burned. August 9th, The second atomic bomb dropped on Nagasaki. He's 3 kilometers away. Again, the odds of this are so small that it basically feels impossible.
Yeah.
But it actually happened.
Yeah. I saw the pictures of him and everything. I mean, just like to think about a guy who survived the first 2, well, the only 2,
Yeah.
like nuclear weapons that have been dropped
Yeah.
against other cultures and stuff like that. It's crazy.
Here's the weird thing, because the next part, talked about his family being away and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So here's the mind-blowing part. Despite experiencing acute radiation poisoning, not once, but twice, and severe burns, he goes on to live another 65 years.
Yeah.
So he lives to be 93 years old and has 3 children, has a career, and he's not burdened or disabled in any way you'd expect from a double atomic bomb survivor to be.
Yeah. To be clear for everybody, he lived until 2010.
Right. And I think his wife died in 2008.
Yeah. I mean,
So-
it's like, you talk about a tough dude.
Yeah. Yeah, she passed away at age 88 in 2008.
It's crazy.
All 3 of their children experienced health problems throughout their life. They blame it on the parents' radiation sickness exposure, which is valid. And then just the contamination going forward. So for decades, he doesn't publicly talk about what he experienced, which is completely valid. After the war, the Allied occupation of Japan begins. Yamaguchi works as a translator for the occupation forces, making use of his language skills and his education. Then he returns to Mitsubishi and picks up where he left off. He designs oil tankers as if nothing ever happened. He gets married because that was not his wife at the time.
Right.
Has kids and basically lives a normal life. In 1957, the Japanese government officially recognizes atomic bomb survivors as this is where it's
Hibakusha?
Hibakusha, yeah. Literally translates...
Niju Hibakusha.
Yeah. Literally translates into explosion-affected people. This is a formal category now with government documentation and support services.
Yeah.
So he gets a certificate, but here's the thing. It says he was the only one affected by the Nagasaki bombing. Mm-hmm. His Hiroshima exposure isn't officially recorded, even though he lived through it.
Yeah.
For a long time, he's okay with it. He's satisfied. He's relatively healthy. He's got his job, his family. He puts his experiences behind him and tries not to think about it. But as he gets older, he enters his 70s and 80s, and something shifts. Maybe he's watching the radiation-related illnesses affecting his wife and children. Mm-hmm. Maybe he's aging and thinking about morality. Maybe it's just because he realized his experience have value beyond his own life, and they're a testimony to history that needs to be recorded. In the 1950s and early 2000s, he begins to talk about what happened. He writes books in the 80s. He writes a memoir called Itsukasuru Inoshi, I think, which basically translates into a life well lived and a book of poetry.
A life well lived.
Yeah.
After surviving 2 of the worst explosions in human history.
So he participates in a 2006 documentary called Twice Survived, the doubly atomic bombed of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, which documents the story of 165 people who survived both bombings. But Yamaguchi is still the only one officially recognized by the government.
Yeah.
So he is one of 165 people that survived. The documentary screened in the United Nations, and that screening, Yamaguchi pleads for the abolition of atomic weapons, rightfully so. He's thinking of survival as his destiny, not luck. Not chance, destiny. He believes he was spared so he could tell a story and make the world understand what exactly atomic weapons do.
Yeah,
so
I had a note on here that said, like, when he was asked later in his life why he eventually chose to speak out, he said that he wanted the world to understand what nuclear weapons do to human beings and to ensure that no one else would ever have to survive what he did. Like, he didn't ever want anybody else to be affected in the way that him and his family were affected by these nuclear explosions. It's crazy.
So in January 2009, at 92, he finally decides to apply for official recognition as the survivor of both bombings. He spent his whole life being recognized as the only Nagasaki survivor. Now, at the very end, he wants to be the record to show the truth that he survived Hiroshima too.
Jeez.
In March 2009, the Japanese government accepts his application. After more than 60 years, he's officially recognized as the Niju Hibakusha, a double bomb survivor, the only person in the world to achieve this status. I don't know if that's an achievement you want to unlock or not, but he's got it.
It's not one that everybody wants to earn.
He's got the platinum. He's got the
though.
little platinum thing next to his name for that. So he asked how it feels, and he says, "My double radiation exposure is now an official government record. It can tell the younger generation the horrifying history of atomic bombings even after I die." So basically, he only did this to basically
Raise
bring
awareness
light to everything, and to make people aware and to have it documented in government, in history,
Right.
that he survived both of these, and this is what happened. So he died of stomach cancer in January 4th, 2010.
That's crazy.
So, you were looking up, did you see the controversy
No.
from the BBC?
No.
So
I didn't see anything about this. I strictly was reading his story and stuff. That was it.
So here's where the story takes a weird, sad, but I think it's worth bringing context in how people treat history.
Yeah.
So in December 2010, 10 months after he passes away, the BBC features him in a comedy quiz show called QI, or for Quite Interesting. The host is Stephen Fry, and he and the celebrity guest are treating Yamaguchi as basically a punchline. So they refer to him as the unluckiest man in the world. They're laughing about his story. One guest asked if the bomb had landed on him and bounced off, basically making dark humor jokes about the man who survived 2 atomic bombs and had now passed away. So his daughter finds out about this, and she appears on the national news, the Japanese national news, and says, "I cannot forgive the atomic bomb experience being laughed at in Britain, which has nuclear weapons of its own. I think it shows the horror of atomic bombs is not well enough understood in the world."
Yeah.
Which is a completely and utterly valid point.
I have always stood on that. I think that bombing Hiroshima and Nagasaki was the wrong call.
Yeah.
Even, I understand, maybe the war would have drawn out. Maybe we would have lost numerous more American lives in the process of the war and stuff like that. But it's number one, you're weighing out, 300,000 Japanese who, by the way, most of them were innocent.
Oh, yeah.
It's not like, yes, we're bombing places that are strategic, but you're killing families in the process, and at least in the context of war, most of the time we try to avoid that tragedy and stuff. And so it's one of those things that, yes, I think that especially for them to go on the BBC and just go on a long series of jokes about this kind of thing is pretty rough.
Yeah, and it's one thing too. This story kind of, and this is kind of where we'll wrap up the story. But like we've said during this entire story, nuclear bombs and things like that, in a military sense, I think need to phase themselves out.
Yeah,
I think, and I know I've said it before. If we would have taken the time that we took to research the bombs, we could have been using that into a resource for power generation and things like that, and would have been further off.
We may have an energy surplus at this point in time if we had used all of that intelligence that we had in the room for the bombs, for the sake of the good of mankind,
and finding clean ways to dispose of it and things like that. Make it more of a limited renewable resource rather than a destructive force.
Absolutely.
But kind of going back to the mentality of the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, I can't remember which medal it is, but there is a war medal that is given out, I think posthumously. I don't think it's a Purple Heart, but one of those.
I don't know much about the war medals.
So there is a war medal that they have not minted since World War II, because they minted so many in preparation for a land invasion of Japan.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
So they anticipated numerous American casualties that never happened, so they literally have not minted this medal since World War II. So all of those medals that are given out are actually from World War II.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Because of the expected casualties of invading Japan.
Yeah, jeez.
So
that's wild.
Yeah, and the whole military aspect, because I'm kind of a World War II nerd.
Yeah.
It was the mentality of Japan during that time was you don't give up.
Right.
That's why you have the kamikaze. That's why you have these people that are willing to do whatever it takes. And I mean, there's a couple of stories, I think, where there were Japanese soldiers on islands that didn't know the war ended.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And that were still basically acting as the war was still going on. So, I mean, it's just sad. I mean, the fact that, you know, we as a people have so many differences that we can't just come together and just, you know what?
I still say, like, that worst case scenario is we need to go back to doing the kind of mode of, like, what happened with David and Goliath, to where you have two armies come together and they both send out their best guy, and you just go, okay, whoever's guy wins, right? That the other team walks away. Maybe we come up with whatever the negotiations are between it and stuff. So it's like, okay, if we win, then this happens. If you win, then this happens. And you put your best guy forward and see what happens and stuff like that, you know. And it's like, I don't know, something better than
what's going on right now.
Well, yeah, especially like the, you know, I know that we love to say that the Cold War ended back in the 80s, but in my opinion, the Cold War has never ended, because there's always the looming threat of somebody pushing the button.
Right.
And if one person pushes the button, then everybody pushes the button, and then the next thing you know, the whole world is gone. And so it's like, we need to come back around to a better solution of things, to say, like, all right, how do we handle this a little bit better? All the nations together, not just one nation trying to push it, you know?
Hey, everybody, do better.
Yeah. Everybody chill out. Just calm down.
Just calm down.
Yeah.
Do better.
That always helps.
Yeah.
So since we're talking about explosions today, and not to make light of the one that we saw before, or the one that I'm going to talk about now, I want to tell you a little bit of a story, and this is about this is from the Halifax Harbor. Do you know anything about that?
Virginia?
No, not in Virginia. This is in Nova Scotia. So this is an interesting story.
I might know about this. Does it have to do with a ship?
Yeah, it does.
I think I know this one, but go on.
Okay. So this story is about the largest explosion that happened before the atomic bombs were dropped and stuff. So before nuclear stuff happened. So on the morning of December the 6th, 1917, the harbor of Halifax, Nova Scotia, was busy but calm. To kind of lay this out, right? So in Nova Scotia, there's the Halifax Harbor was this place that had a really narrow entrance, because it existed in a place where the seas were really rough and stuff. And so they had to keep the super narrow entrance to keep from the waves and everything coming into the harbor and stuff, to make it safe for ships to come in. So Halifax was this like key port during World War I, which is, was coming to a close at that point in time.
Right.
It was crowded with military transport, supply ships, merchant vessels, the whole nine. So just after about 8:30 a.m. on December the 6th, two ships entered the narrow harbor passage known as the Narrows, go figure, moving towards one another in what appeared to be a routine crossing. So this is not anything that like anybody was looking at these ships and going like, oh, this is really bad, that anything's going to happen. They just go, oh, they're going to pass as they go through the harbor and stuff. They'll do a routine kind of thing. So one ship was the SS Mont-Blanc. It was a French cargo vessel that was arriving from New York, right? So they had stopped in the United States, moved up through Nova Scotia and stuff. On board that ship was a common cargo at that point in time for the World War, but a very dangerous cargo.
I was going to say it was black powder.
So here's all that it carried. The Mont Blanc carried 2,600 tons of picric acid.
Oh, yeah.
TNT, benzol, and gun cotton, which were materials intended for the European front in the war, right? So they're trying to move that stuff to them.
Basically, it was America's way of helping out without helping out.
Exactly, yeah.
They were helping by proxy.
It's like, oh, we're not there, but we're just sending some stuff. And so because of the wartime secrecy, like what we're just talking about, the ship didn't fly any warning flags identifying what it was carrying, right?
Could you imagine like the placards they put on the semis, but it's just giant flags that are flying on these ships?
Flying in the air. It's like one of them's just a big bomb picture. Another one's like acid, It's like all the things that we see on the back of like semi-trucks and stuff. Yeah, that'd be hilarious. So the other ship, and this is really funny to me, the other ship that's coming towards it is the SS IMO. Must be something about that name. Because remember, Imo Vojkovic, or however you said his last name, was the super soldier
in World War II.
Yeah, that they got really cranked up on.
So that was you said that was a British ship?
No, so this was a Norwegian relief vessel.
Okay.
Which,
that makes sense.
Yeah, it's pretty close. Like it's not exactly the same, but yeah, it's pretty close in location. So it was leaving the harbor after some delays, right? So it was supposed to have gone out earlier. It ends up going out at the same time that the SS Mont-Blanc is coming into the harbor. So due to communication errors and navigational errors, and honestly, like from what they said, a little bit of impatience on both sides, the two ships failed to yield properly to one another. And at 8:45 a.m., the IMO struck, like broadsided, the Mont Blanc at low speed. So the collision itself wasn't
it like at 5 knots or something? Like,
yeah, it didn't say in the story that I read and stuff as far as like exactly what speed it was going, but they said that like this was the type of thing that like the collision itself wasn't severe.
Yeah,
like it shouldn't have been catastrophic. Shouldn't have basically it's like walk it off kind of thing.
Yeah,
and deal with some dents in the ship or whatever. Problem is that a bunch of the barrels of benzol that were in the bottom of the Mont Blanc were damaged and began to leak onto the decks of the Mont Blanc. Yeah. Sparks from the collisions of the two ships ignited the benzol, which is fuel, and within moments the ship was on fire. So again, typically in any other circumstances, they would have done the work to put the fire out. Everything would have been fine. The problem with this ship is that it's carrying an inordinate amount of explosives, and no one else knows about that except for the crew.
Right. So they're moving with a delayed sense of urgency.
Well, so at this point, when the fire starts, the crew is freaking out.
Oh, of the Mont Blanc.
So the crew of the Mont Blanc abandoned ship. They're just like,
rightfully so.
This,
yeah. They're like, where are they going?
So they jump in their rowboats and they're just, they are killing it trying to get to shore. While they're doing this, the captain and others that are with them are screaming to the guys on the SS IMO and to anybody within earshot, you got to get the heck away from here. Like, get out type of thing. But there's a language barrier, right? So the guys on the Mont Blanc, it's a French ship that came out of New York.
Hey, get out of here!
Yes. So they're screaming in French that everybody needs to leave. These guys that are at the docks in Nova Scotia are not catching on to everything they're saying, even though I know that Nova Scotia is like French Canadian in that sense. But something about it, they couldn't translate everything fast enough, and so people weren't getting the message.
Then you have the IMO, woohoo!
Yeah. He's like, oh, hello. So this means that most of the people didn't get what was going on, right? And so thousands of people from the harbor town begin to gather in to the harbor to see what's going on, right? Because back in that day, like it's 1917. The world's not the most exciting place at that point in time.
Especially in Nova Scotia.
Yeah, it's right. Yeah, it's like the biggest thing that happens there in a day is like somebody gets mauled by a polar bear. So
right. Yeah.
Like, so they're out there just like they're like, oh, there's a giant ship that's on fire. Everybody seems to be freaking out and yelling and screaming. Let's go see what's going on. So they all begin to go out to the edges of this thing, and so they gather out there and they watch as the Mont Blanc drifts slowly towards Pier 6. At 9:04 a.m., the Mont Blanc explodes.
Right. And doesn't just explode.
Doesn't just explode, right?
It explodes with
2,300 pounds. Tons, of explosives inside. So the blast that comes out of the Mont Blanc at that point in time is the largest man-made explosion that the world has ever seen.
Yes.
It was greater than any explosion recorded before the atomic age. So before we get atomic bombs, this is the Tsar Bomba, basically. Yes. It's the big one. So a massive fireball vaporizes the ship and the surrounding harbor. The shockwave flattened buildings uprooted trees, bent iron rails on the railroads, and shattered windows as far as 60 miles away.
Yeah.
That's 60 miles away. That's crazy.
Could you imagine just sitting at your kitchen table, just, sitting down for breakfast?
Oh, gosh, man.
Read the paper.
And then your windows.
Yeah, these moose, eh? And then,
Yeah. I mean, just craziness.
Yeah.
So a tsunami surged through the harbor, sweeping people and debris into the water. Because, right, like as soon as this thing goes off, you can imagine it creates this crater in the water, which then sends the shock waves out. They wash up on shore, pulling people into the water and all this kind of stuff. So nearly 2,000 people were killed instantly by this bomb. More than 9,000 people were injured by it. So entire neighborhoods in Halifax were destroyed in seconds. And so despite this unimaginable devastation that's going on here, thousands more people survived who very easily might not have, right? Like, so there's a lot of things that happened in the sense of this that people that shouldn't have survived did, but others just got wiped out. So that morning, the crazy thing that happened was a severe winter storm had delayed the city's streetcars and had slowed the normal rush of the day. So because of snow and all that kind of stuff, people just weren't moving as fast. So many workers hadn't arrived at the docks yet. Even more significantly than that was that the schools across Halifax had not begun classes yet. Children were still at home when the explosion occurred, which probably saved
a lot more
thousands of lives, right? Doctors, nurses, soldiers, and ordinary citizens all rushed to the destruction to help. They went in. They said the biggest thing that was a problem was eye injuries were the most widespread thing because
of the debris. And
when the thing started, everybody went to their windows and were looking out to the harbor. So when the explosion happens, it sent glass into all these people's eyes and stuff like that. And so they got tons of people who are dealing with eye problems and all this kind of stuff. Hospitals got overwhelmed, and makeshift medical stations were set up all across the city and stuff. And of course, help comes quickly from like outside of Halifax. You would almost imagine that people in the United States were like, "What was that boom? We should probably go lend a hand."
Right.
And so the first major aid train came from Boston the next day. So there was like a ton of people that came up from Boston into Nova Scotia. And the cool thing is that day, because of Boston showing up to help the people in Nova Scotia, it started a relationship between the two cities that goes on till today. Like they said, that there's still like this really cool like friendship between these two cities because Boston was the first one to respond to their needs and everything. In the weeks and the months that followed, though, Halifax began to rebuild their city. New safety regulations were written, obviously, for ships and stuff like that. The harbor reopened. Life continued on. But they were marked forever by a single morning when time seemed to stop. And the SS IMO and the SS Mont-Blanc met together in a very fateful moment. Crazy stuff.
That is crazy.
So the largest man-made explosion outside of the atomic bombs. Pretty crazy story. So I thought that those two kind of tied in well together since we were talking about man-made devastation in a sense. And just crazy how the effects of those things kind of play out in the lives of humans and stuff. So cool. Well, as we get ready to wrap up today, we'll just remind you guys, like we always do, to take an opportunity to check out our Linktree link. It's down below in the description of this episode, or you can find it just about anywhere that we post anything.
Right.
And Josh can tell you a little bit about what all is included in the Linktree stuff.
Yep. So it has links to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Facebook, Instagram, and I believe YouTube. So go ahead and click on all those buttons. Do the
click them all.
Yeah, click them all. Go to all of them.
Don't just go click on your favorite one.
Yeah.
Click all of them.
And
follow,
give us
like, subscribe, share.
Download helps us in algorithm,
good.
things like that. Even if you just download them and just play them in the background on one volume, it helps us a lot. And that we can get this podcast out to a lot more people.
Yeah, we'd appreciate that. Otherwise, we hope that you guys have a great week this week. We will be back next week with your listener comments.
Yes.
As well as some more fun stories for you guys. We hope that you have a great one, and we will see you in the next episode. Bye. Ready for this snow to go away.
Well, it's snowing currently. So.
Yeah, I know.
Can you believe people still have their decorations up
For Christmas?
for Christmas?
I don't know
at
if you
the end
noticed
of
or not,
February.
but the lights on our front porch are still there.
I mean, we still have our tree up, so.
Do you? Or like just busting on each other.